Protests are fairly common around Parliament House. Usually they're restrained to the lawns out the front, but yesterday a group of pharmacists wearing their white coats made their way into the public gallery where they staged a protest in the middle of question time against the government's double-dispensing changes.
Those are the savings. The Leader of the Opposition.
Order. Members will leave the galleries.
Mr Speaker, I'd like to raise a point of order under Standing Order 91E, disorderly conduct from the members of the opposition and the members in the gallery. And I'd ask that security take care of these elements. The encouragement from the opposition for this conduct shows a great disrespect.
Well, this afternoon, Speaker of the House Milton Dick delivered this rebuke.
I just want to remind members that their guest seating in the galleries is a privilege. If you invite a guest in the gallery, I consider their conduct to be a reflection on you. And I want to be clear that if this behaviour continues, that privilege may be revoked. Visitors of the public galleries here are observers, not participants. This is the final warning. There will be no tolerance for any attempts to disrupt or interfere with proceedings of the House again.
We heard a moment ago the independent member for Warringah, Zali Steggall, giving the pharmacists in the gallery a dressing down. She's now lodged a formal complaint to the Speaker about this, and she joins me now in the studio. Zali Steggall, thanks for your time. Pleasure. If there was going to be a class of people who were going to cause a big kerfuffle in question time, I wouldn't normally nominate pharmacists.
Absolutely.
Take us through what happened yesterday.
Look, it was very rowdy, and I think the question time is an opportunity for robust debate. I think there's a fair bit of argy-bargy and posturing, a fair bit of theatrics between the major parties, but it still has to be a place of respect for the Parliament, for the institution. And I think the corridors and rows of white coats, interjecting, yelling, flipping the finger, I think that is not conduct.
Who was that at?
At members of Parliament, at the Speaker, after the warning.
Oh no, the Speaker.
At the
Were they
chamber,
swearing?
There was swearing, there was gestures as they were asked to leave ultimately. And I guess I also took issue with the coalition's conduct because they were egging them on and pointing to them, gesturing to them, yelling to them and encouraging them to participate, which I don't think is conduct befitting members of Parliament.
What did you think of Milton Dick's reaction today? Is that enough?
It's enough. I have written to him to ask for an explanation or a clarification in relation to some of the standing orders and the question of do we deal with protests, I guess, in a consistent way, because I didn't quite understand why simply a warning was made to the first interjection, the first incident, and why they were not required to leave the gallery immediately.
As you said, climate protesters have been.
In the past, whenever anyone has attempted to disrupt question time from the gallery, security has intervened and made them, required them to leave immediately. So I don't understand why that group was permitted to stay and then clearly took advantage.
Do you blame the Speaker or security for that, or both?
No, I think I blame maybe... it's not a question to blame. I think it's just a question of we need to apply consistent rules. I think pharmacists maybe benefited from a perception of being, I think the vast majority
of pharmacists... White collar, so to speak.
White collar, so to speak.
But they wear the white coats.
The white coats are certainly trying to... But that raises another question of that wearing of uniform or using attire to make a political statement in the gallery. Clearly that is what they're trying to do. That is not something that should be encouraged. And so I think standards across the board should be consistent.
Because we want people to be able to attend question time, obviously.
Absolutely. And what a lot of people don't realise is school kids are attending question time. We have Year 5 and 6 public school students in the gallery most days of the week. And
good behaviour they see too.
Well, I get a lot of feedback about people horrified about the conduct that the school kids are observing.
Fair enough. Well, while I've got you, I might ask your view of the government's IR reforms. I've got these two weighty tomes on the desk next to me here.
As you can tell, there's quite a lot of reading. Whilst we have had some preliminary briefings by Tony Burke, we hadn't seen the legislation. So we have got a commitment by the government, though, that it will not be put on for a vote until the October sitting fortnight. So I will be going away to review that legislation and get consultation and
What's
feedback.
your gut feel? Is there anything in there that concerns you at the moment?
I am am concerned about ultimately where that small business definition lies, because I think there's this idea of a small business being less than 15, but by the time you include a receptionist, a couple of part-timers or some casual staff, you get to 15 very quickly.
So you might like to see that raised?
I think there is always that question of what is a feasible definition of small business.
Yeah, and you participated in Pat Farmer's run for the Yes campaign.
Absolutely.
The latest news poll indicates the referendum's doomed. What do you make of that?
Look, I really question, again, the polls, I guess we will see if they're correct or not on the 14th of October. I can only speak to my experience. My experience on the ground is incredibly positive, and I've done the run, I've done events, I've done 2 forums, 1 online, I've done market stalls, and I would say my feedback is about 7 out of 10 positive on the street. So
in your electorate?
Sure, in my electorate.
But you would have a yes voting electorate, don't you think?
Well, again, I don't know. Some of those polls...
The North Shore?
You know, well, I would hope so. I think we are a progressive, and I think caring about this issue, obviously I've taken the Uluru Statement to the last 2 elections and promised that I would support a referendum and support the voice. So I guess that's not a surprise from my point of view for Warringah, but my feeling on the ground and my feedback from a lot of people is positive. So I think we have 6 weeks, and I urge everyone to get out, have the conversation, and can I say, if in doubt, find out.
What do you think of Peter Dutton's call for a second referendum?
Oh, I think it's quite hypocritical, to be honest, because from my perspective, the Coalition have been in government for 9 years. So if they were genuine about achieving constitutional recognition, they had the opportunity. In fact, I met with Minister Ken Wyatt in the last Parliament very shortly after the election in 2019, asked him what could I do to help him progress constitutional recognition and the voice within his government. He indicated it was difficult in the Coalition party room. I can see that with the kind of Dutton's No campaign. So look, I just don't believe it's a genuine commitment. And at the end of the day, we have to think constitutional recognition on its own has the risk of being tokenistic, because it's not accompanied with what in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander
might be successful though, whereas this might not, because people are worried about a voice being permanently enshrined, right?
But a voice is an opportunity to express an opinion about policies. So I think we've absolutely blown out of proportion what the voice will do, and it's that fine balance between being effective without being an overreach on power.
How do you think Peter Dutton's stance on this issue in particular and other issues will go down in the so-called teal seats he wants to win back?
I don't think his leadership is viewed in a positive way, is the best way I could put it. I think he is viewed as very negative, not constructive. He hasn't come to the table on any meaningful policy when it comes to climate change, transition, protecting the environment, even the approach to many of the areas the government's bringing forward when it comes to the IR law. It's kind of an all or nothing no. It's not a constructive, let me work with you to come up with a better solution for all involved. So I can't say I have any positive feedback from the community about his leadership.
Now, you say you and your independent colleagues aren't a party. Do you caucus at all? Sometimes you meet ministers at the same time with questions on issues though, don't you?
Absolutely, because if I could remind you, during the election, the call was too many independents and we will have a disorganised and it will be chaos in Parliament.
Do you have meetings though? Do you, when I say caucus, do you actually meet over issues?
We meet as an entire crossbench to discuss the business of the week.
So that would include Pocock, etc. That would, yeah.
Of course, because we want to know what's happening to the business.
But it wouldn't include
agenda.
Jackie Lambie or Pauline Hanson.
Well, all are invited. Oh. All are invited, because we want to know, for example, when we're putting pressure on the government to move amendments in the House, if they're not, we often get the answer, we will address it in the other place. So we want to make sure that everyone is aware of the improvements that can be done to legislation. But look, taking briefings together from ministers is simply being productive and cost-effective in not asking a minister to repeat 7 briefings.
Your best hope to be effective, I guess, is for minority government, isn't it? So actually it's better for you if Anthony Albanese's stocks go a bit south so you get to that situation. Would you agree?
Look, my role is to represent Warringah and to hold government to account and to get the best outcomes possible, working with both sides. I think at the end of the day, we still need to progress a lot. Right, on a lot of policy areas. So for me, I want to see change on key areas and I will pressure whoever is in government.
Zali Steggall, independent member for Warringah, thanks very much for your time this afternoon.